left in 200 feet. Turn left in 200 feet.
Pick me and I'll let you ride in my car. I will cut your hair.
I'll paint your portrait. I'll fry you bacon.
I'll wash your dog.
I'll wash your truck.
I'll wash your feet. What?
I trust them. You can too. That's on your side. Get a quote today.
2009 is upon us, and while the main focus of our story had its peaks and valleys throughout 2008, the world itself had many, many lows. And in 2009, those lows would unfortunately continue. January would see the worst month of the Great Recession so far. 800,000 jobs would be lost, causing unemployment to rise to 7.8%, the highest percentage since June of 1992. Although the Great Recession would officially end in 2009, job losses would continue throughout the year, with the unemployment rate eventually peaking at 10% in October. Some other notable events include the release of Avatar, and despite the difficult economic climate, Avatar still managed to become the highest grossing film of all time during its run in theaters. The Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Arizona Cardinals to win their 6th Super Bowl. Former NASDAQ chairman Bernie Madoff pled guilty to a multi-billion-dollar Ponzi scheme, defrauding over $60 billion from investors. In the world of NASCAR, the economic crisis of the previous year would continue to affect the sport. Much like last year, corporate America's reluctancy to spend millions of dollars in sponsorship would continue to grow. To add to this, 3 of the 4 manufacturers would cut their support to teams in some capacity. Following the bankruptcy of General Motors, GM cut all of their support to both the Nationwide Series and the Truck Series, and reduced their support in the Cup Series. The bankruptcy of Chrysler would lead to several Dodge Cup teams losing their factory support entirely, including Petty Enterprises. Toyota would give a slight reduction in support before the 2009 season, as rumors began to swirl about the manufacturer potentially leaving the Truck and Nationwide Series, which Toyota would later deny. Ford is the only manufacturer still funding at pre-crisis levels. As a result of the declining sponsorship dollars and reduced manufacturer support, many Cup teams would merge or form alliances. Dale Earnhardt Inc. would merge with Chip Ganassi Racing, forming Earnhardt Ganassi Racing with Felix Sabates. The number 1 and number 8 from DEI would continue to run along with the Ganassi 42, shutting down the DEI 01, 15, and the Ganassi 41. Due to the cut support from Dodge, the 42 team would switch to Chevrolet. Another product of the continuing sponsorship woes would be Petty Enterprises merging with Gillette Evernham Motorsports, a team whose well had run dry on sponsorship dollars. The result of the merger would be the formation of Richard Petty Motorsports. In late 2008, Bill Davis Racing would be sold to Mike Held and Marty Gaunt, renaming the team to Triad Racing Development. Hall of Fame Racing would form an alliance with Yates Racing, switching their 96 from Toyota to Ford. In late 2008, NASCAR would implement a testing ban for 2009 onward. Teams would no longer be allowed to test on tracks that held NASCAR National Series races, plus Camping World East and West races. However, Goodyear tire tests would still be held at the tracks that held National Series races. For example, after the absolute disaster that was the 2008 Brickyard 400, Goodyear conducted 7 tire tests in Indianapolis. Silly season would once again be a big discussion for 2009. After 10 years, 33 wins, and 2 Cup Series championships, Tony Stewart would leave Joe Gibbs Racing. The main cause of Stewart leaving was his loyalty to Chevrolet, after Gibbs had switched to Toyota for 2008 onward. In July of 2008, Stewart reached an agreement with team owner Gene Haas to become co-owner of the team and form Stewart-Haas Racing. With Stewart piloting the number 14 Chevy for 2009, he wouldn't be the only team under the Stewart-Haas banner. Reigning Daytona 500 champion Ryan Newman would be behind the wheel of the number 39, leaving Penske Racing after the team experienced struggles throughout 2008. These 2 moves would be the first of many dominoes to fall. Replacing Stewart at Gibbs would be 18-year-old sensation Joey Logano, and joining Logano in the fight for Rookie of the Year would be former Formula 1 driver Scott Speed. Replacing AJ Allmendinger for 2009, Scott Speed will only be in his 2nd full-time season in stock cars, and despite his experience in other forms of motorsports, Sliced Bread seems to be the early favorite for Rookie of the Year. These 2 are the only true rookies aiming to compete full-time. Max Papis will be eligible for Rookie of the Year, driving the number 13 for Germain Racing, but he'll only be competing part-time. Marcus Ambrose will be in his first full-time season in the 47 for JTG Doherty Racing, but he's ineligible for Rookie of the Year due to having ran more than 7 races in 2008. Among the many other moves in the offseason include Reed Sorensen moving to the famed number 43 for Richard Petty Motorsports, along with AJ Allmendinger driving the number 44. Early in 2008, Boston Ventures purchased Petty Enterprises, causing Kyle Petty to step down as the team's CEO. As Petty had taken over broadcasting duties on TNT in 2007 following the unfortunate passing of Benny Parsons, Petty had begun taking races off in conjunction with his broadcasting schedule. In 2008, his racing schedule dwindled further. In a December 2008 interview with NASCAR.com, Petty would say, quote, "I don't work for Petty Enterprises. When they did their deal and sold to Boston Ventures, they pretty much let me know there wasn't a place for me there in 2009. With Petty quietly retiring, 2009 will mark the first season in NASCAR's history without a member of the Petty family competing."
I mean, Kyle had no clue that Kansas was down on the inside.
David Stremme would get another opportunity in the Cup Series, being signed by Roger Penske to drive the number 12. Following the closure of the 01 team for DEI, 2008 Rookie of the Year Regan Smith would move to the number 78 for Furniture Row Racing, albeit a part-time effort. Eric Almirola will be full-time in the number 8 for DEI if sponsorship can be found. The same being said for Travis Kvapil in the Yates Racing 28. Clint Boyer will move to Richard Childress Racing's new 33 team from the 07, with Casey Mears taking over his previous team. With the 5 car being vacant at Hendrick Motorsports, Hendrick has their future prospect waiting in the wings. For 2009, however, Rick Hendrick is going to be giving a legend in the sport a chance to potentially go out on top. Mark has signed a 2-year contract to drive the Hendrick Motorsports number 5, full-time in 2009, and 20 races in 2010. The obvious answer to who else will be driving the 5 in 2010 is Hendrick's hottest prospect, Brad Keselowski. And with Keselowski driving a 5th Hendrick Motorsports entry for 8 races in 2009, more and more fuel is added to that fire. While Martin is looking to make the number 5 competitive once again and potentially capture that elusive championship, it won't come easy. With 2009 being the 25th anniversary of Hendrick Motorsports, the team is looking stronger than ever. After a solid start to 2008, Dale Jr. faltered once the chase began. In the final 10 races, Dale Jr. finished outside the top 20 5 times, leading to a 12th place finish in points. Jeff Gordon, despite ending the year 7th in points, went winless for the first time in 14 seasons. Kevin Harvick, finishing 4th in points, went winless as well. However, with Harvick, Clint Boyer, and Jeff Burton claiming 4th, 5th, and 6th in points, RCR looks to be on the rise. After being the hottest driver in NASCAR throughout 2008, and being the first driver to mathematically lock himself into the chase, finishes of 34th at New Hampshire, 43rd at Dover, and 28th at Kansas would effectively end Kyle Busch's hopes for a championship. Joe Gibbs Racing's first season with Toyota didn't end the way that they had hoped after starting strong, but their 3 teams finishing 8th, 9th, and 10th in points isn't anything to dismiss. Roush Racing had 3 of their 5 teams make the chase. Matt Kenseth quietly finished 11th in points after going winless. Greg Biffle went winless for the first 26 races. Then he rattled off 2 wins to start the chase, leading to eventually finishing 3rd in the standings. Carl Edwards had a career year in 2008, taking home 9 wins, including 3 wins in the chase. However, back-to-back finishes of 29th and 33rd at Talladega and Charlotte put Edwards in a deficit, one that he couldn't overcome, finishing out the year 2nd in points. Despite the high level of competition all throughout the field, including drivers such as Casey Kane, Ryan Newman, and Kurt Busch, who were all race winners and still missed out on the chase, the man still sitting atop the NASCAR world for the 3rd straight year is Jimmie Johnson, winning 7 races en route to tying Cale Yarborough's record of 3 straight Cup Series championships. The number 48 team will be trying for an almost unthinkable 4th consecutive championship, and after everything else they've accomplished, I don't see any reason why that wouldn't be a possibility.
This is the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series.
2008 saw what was possibly the greatest championship battle in Truck Series history, with Johnny Benson taking home the championship by a mere 7 points over Ron Hornaday. The championship would be Bill Davis Racing's first and ultimately their one and only, as the team would be sold at season's end. 2008 would also be the last under the Craftsman banner, as Sears Holdings withdrew their title sponsorship at the end of the year. For 2009 and for the years to come, the series will be known as the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. Ron Hornaday will undoubtedly be the championship favorite heading into 2009, and Johnny Benson in his new ride at Red Horse Racing. The Truck Series has a few interesting rookies for 2009 as well, with Taylor Malsom, James Buescher, and former Nationwide Series winner Johnny Sauter. While each of these drivers will be competing full-time, the rookie with the biggest hype surrounding him will only be competing part-time. 10-time AMA Motocross champion and 5-time AMA Supercross champion, the GOAT, Ricky Carmichael. Coming off of a full season in the Camping World East Series with Ken Schrader Racing, Ricky will be competing part-time with Kevin Harvick Incorporated for 16 races. Just like last year, the old guard is still holding strong, and until proven otherwise, I don't think that'll be changing this year. I suppose it's time for the main focus of our story, the NASCAR Nationwide Series.
The new NASCAR Nationwide Series on ESPN2.
Per usual, the Bushwhackers will be in full force throughout the season. Kevin Harvick will be competing in 22 races this season. Jeff Burton will be making starts in the 29, along with defending series champion Clint Bowyer. David Reagan, Matt Kenseth, and Greg Biffle will all be making starts for Roush. Brian Vickers will make 17 starts for Braun Racing. Dale Jr. will make some starts, Ryan Newman will, Casey Mears will, the list goes on. 2 Bushwhackers will be full-time in 2009. Kyle Busch in the Joe Gibbs Racing number 18, and Carl Edwards in the Roush 60. While there will only be 2 that we realistically have to consider for the championship, you can make a safe bet that every single Bushwhacker I've mentioned so far will most certainly be in contention for wins throughout the year. And just like the last 3 years, certain parts of the season will be absolutely miserable. But there should be some high points as well. The Busch Series regulars won a whopping 6 times last season, more than they had won in 2006 and 2007 combined. On the topic of the regulars, let's take a look at some of them. For the Toyota camp, Michael Annett will be making a run for Rookie of the Year driving for Germain Racing. Scott Lagasse Jr. will be aiming to do the same, driving the CJM Racing number 11. Trevor Bayne will be competing in 12 races for Michael Waltrip Racing, and Jason Leffler will be back once again in the number 38 for Braun Racing. For the Ford camp, Eric McClure will be driving the number 24 for Team Renzi Motorsports. Eric Darnell will be making 16 starts in the 6 for Jack Roush, along with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. making 6 starts in the 16 as well. John West Townley will be heading to RAB Racing for a Rookie of the Year effort, and series veteran Jason Keller will be in the 27 for Baker Curb Racing. For Dodge, Penske Racing will be fielding the number 12 for 2008 ARCA champion Justin Allgaier. In all honesty, that's pretty much it for the Dodge camp. For Chevrolet, that's a different story. Mike Bliss will be in the Phoenix Racing number 1. Stephen Light will be making 9 starts in the 29 for Richard Childress Racing. Rusty Wallace Incorporated will have 2 full-time drivers behind the wheel, with Stephen Wallace in the 66 and Rookie of the Year contender Brendan Gaughan in the 62. Scott Wimmer will be in the 40 for Key Motorsports, and in the 5 for JR Motorsports for select races. And full-time in the JR Motorsports number 88 will be our hero from the previous installment, Brad Keselowski. He's the only Nationwide Series regular to have scored multiple wins in any season we've covered so far, so it'll be interesting to see if he can continue his success from 2008 and potentially dethrone the Bushwhackers atop the point standings. We know he'll be going Cup racing next year in some capacity. This is likely going to be Brad's last full-time season in the Nationwide Series. Hopefully, he can go out with a bang. Tony Stewart would win the season opener at Daytona, just as he had done the year prior. The next race would be at Auto Club, where Kyle Busch would lead 143 of the race's 150 laps and take the win. The following race at Las Vegas saw Brad Keselowski have a dismal race, being a part of 2 cautions and finishing outside the top 20 for the 3rd straight time to start the season. The race would be won by Greg Biffle, marking his first win in the series since 2006. Keselowski's rough start to the year would continue at Bristol, as he would once again be involved in 2 cautions, but luckily he'd be able to salvage a finish of 12th. The race would be won by Kevin Harvick, moving him to 2nd in points, 114 behind Carl Edwards. The next race would take the series to Texas, where Kyle Busch would grab his 2nd win of the season, leading 178 out of 200 laps. The series would then head to Nashville. The race would be remembered not for Joey Logano's 2nd career win in the series, but for Joe Nemechek flipping on the front stretch and continuing on until NASCAR later gave him the black flag. The next race would be at Phoenix, where Greg Biffle held off a hard-charging Jason Leffler and Brad Keselowski to take his 2nd win of the season. Kyle Busch would take the lead in the point standings. Talladega would be next. With 13 laps to go, a bad push by David Ragan would send Matt Kenseth onto his roof on the backstretch. Ragan would narrowly edge out Ryan Newman to score his first win in any NASCAR National Series. Brad Keselowski would finish 9th, in his first of 2 starts this weekend.
They can catch them. What we've seen today, 2 cars get that big a lit run on them. I don't know that the 39 and the 88 can catch them.
They're in the draft of Edwards and Keselowski.
All over you here, just you and him.
Carl Edwards restarted 8th.
If that 09 can stay hooked to the back of that 99, it's going to be hard to get them. It's going to be close right here at the line.
Can Keselowski try to win it?
I don't know. I don't think he can step out until he waits till the last second and picks up. He goes the guy's side. Is Edwards going? Oh, no! He turns him.
In an effort to prove that he's worthy of a Cup seat, he stood his ground and took a win away from the Cup guys. The first lap he had ever led in any of his Cup starts would prove to be the most important. Brad Keselowski
Won this race.
The following Nationwide Series race would be at Richmond, where Kyle Busch would beat Carl Edwards following a green-white checkered. The next race at Darlington would be won by Matt Kenseth. Over on the Cup side, Mark Martin would earn his 2nd win of the season. Along with his win, Hendrick Motorsports announced that Martin would return to the number 5 full-time in 2010. With this announcement, it leaves a number of questions for Keselowski. Hendrick can't field an extra car for 2010, as they're already at their 4-car limit with drivers in the middle of multi-year deals. Hendrick could potentially work out a deal with Stewart-Haas Racing, which is their affiliate team. But for now, just 2 weeks after his first Cup Series win, Keselowski's future in the Cup Series is uncertain. Heading into tonight's race, Kyle Busch holds a 37-point lead over Edwards. The cars would roll out onto the track, despite it still being damp in certain spots from a rain shower earlier in the evening. The race begins under rare green-yellow conditions. After 6 laps under caution, the field is turned loose. After starting in 38th after an engine change, Kyle Busch is already up to 24th coming off of turn 2. Edwards leads the first lap under green as Greg Biffle and David Ragan battle for 2nd behind him. Despite the rain washing all of the rubber off the track, it's clear the track has an incredible amount of grip. By lap 18, Kyle Busch has made it up 28 spots to 10th place. A couple laps later, he passes both Kevin Harvick and Paul Menard on the outside of turn 2 to move into 8th. As we ride on board with the 12 of Justin Allgaier, Michael Annett crashes in turn 2 to bring out the caution. The majority of the front runners take 2 tires in order to maintain track position, while some only take fuel. As they race off pit road, Mike Bliss has jumped 7 spots and rolls off 10th. As the race goes back under green, Edwards gets the jump on David Ragan heading into turn 1. On the backstretch, Kyle Busch goes to the outside of Logano. Using the high line to his advantage, he gets back to the gas much quicker than 4th place runner Michael McDowell, and easily clears him off of turn 4. Greg Biffle would then go around both McDowell and Logano going down the front stretch. Busch would make his way around Reagan and eventually do the same to Brian Vickers. On lap 40, Kyle makes his move to the outside of Edwards and clears him off of turn 2, from the back to the lead in just 41 laps. 16 laps after the pass, his lead is now 3.8 seconds over new second place runner Greg Biffle. As ESPN begins to run down the field, Jason Leffler is the only non-bushwhacker inside the top 5. The only other nationwide regular throughout the rest of the top 10 is Mike Bliss, running in 8th.
And we're 37 laps from halfway, and there are some rain showers on the radar. They don't look imminent, but they're worth keeping an eye on. We'll do that for you as Kyle Busch leads from the back of the pack to the front.
On lap 76, Stephen Wallace is the first driver onto pit road for green flag pit stops. As Busch laps the 66 coming back onto the track, Keselowski makes the pass on Edwards for 9th. After leading the early stages of the race, Carl Edwards falls even further to 10th. A few laps later, the leaders make their stops. As Brendan Gaughan is making his pit stop to complete the cycle, Justin Allgaier spins in the middle of turn 1 and 2 and brings out the caution. The race goes back green on lap 95. Kyle Busch clears the lapped car lined up on the inside and jumps out ahead of the field with ease off of turn 2. After restarting second, Jason Leffler is dropped back to 4th, with Joey Logano right behind him. Jason is saying he's feeling a vibration, but the crew got all of the lug nuts tight. However, a wheel weight fell off during pit stops. On lap 106, Stanton Barrett gets into the wall in turn 4, but we stay green. 4 laps later, Mike Bliss makes the pass on Jeff Burton for 6th. On lap 117, Kyle Busch's lead is right around a second and a half on Brian Vickers as ESPN goes to commercial. As the green flag run continues, Busch's lead has begun to slowly fade as Vickers chases him down. On lap 140, Vickers makes his move to the outside and passes Kyle at the line. The field is almost in their window to make it to the end of the race comfortably, so Vickers being ahead of Kyle before the cycle of stops gives him that much more of a chance to stay in the lead.
And by the way, I have been watching the weather radar down here, Doc, DJ, and Andy, and the showers that were heading this way have kind of broken up and dissipated, so I think we're good to go to the checkered flag.
On lap 145, Paul Menard makes his way down pit road to begin the final round of stops for the night if the race stays green. Dale Earnhardt Jr. follows him down. Brian Vickers comes down pit road the following lap, and on lap 150, Kyle Busch makes his stop. While Jason Leffler makes his stop, Stephen Wallace spins getting onto pit road, but the race stays green. As Wallace gets it straightened out, the cameras cut to Kevin Hamlin, who has gotten into the wall in turn 1, bringing out an untimely caution for many of the drivers on pit road. As the pace car picks up race leader Mike Bliss, only 2 cars are on the lead lap, Bliss and Brendan Gaughan. They both come down pit road and take 4 tires and fuel. Since they both made stops, all the drivers that had come down pit road and were a lap down at the time of the caution are now at the tail end of the lead lap, with Bliss and Gaughan starting way back in the field behind them. If this goes green the rest of the way, Bliss might have his second Nationwide Series win in the bag. Ironically, at the same track where he scored his very first win in the series 5 years ago. After a lengthy cleanup for oil on the backstretch, the race goes back green with 39 laps remaining. Heading down the backstretch, Bliss takes a super cautious approach into turn 3, knowing he doesn't need to race these guys as long as this race stays green. As far as everyone else is concerned, they're letting it all hang out. They're 2 and in some cases 3 wide battling for position. As Bliss heads into turn 1, Brendan Gaughan goes high to try to make the pass for the lead. Bliss powers back around him on the bottom, but Gaughan uses the momentum from the high side to carry him back around the number 1 heading into turn 3. Gaughan clears Bliss with ease coming out of turn 4, and leads by 2.5 car lengths by the end of the front stretch. Coming off of turn 4, Bliss gets a strong run off the corner, and is back in Gaughan's tire tracks. Bliss gets right alongside him coming off of turn 2, but once again, the momentum from the high side allows Gaughan to carry more speed down the straight. Going into turn 3, Bliss sails it off into the corner, and manages to clear Gaughan off of 4. Bliss pulls away from Gaughan ever so slightly as he takes the stripe with 32 laps to go. Going into turn 1, Dale Jr. has a big moment underneath the 10 of Bernie Lamar, and just as Bliss gets alongside Jr., he keys the radio and delivers some news.
And being shown a lap down.
Keep digging. Caution's out. Caution's out.
A pop-up shower brings out the caution. The pace car leads the field down pit road as the #1 team hopes and prays for more rain. If this race gets restarted, it doesn't look good for Mike. Bliss has had a fast car, but it'll be a tall task for him to hold off the pack of wolves behind him. After a few minutes, NASCAR sends the jet dryers out. All everyone can do is wait. After the jet dryers make a couple passes, the field prepares to head back out on the track as the broadcast goes to commercial. When they come back from break, we see the field hasn't moved. The rain has moved back in. This time, it's no pop-up shower. It's pouring. The crews put covers on their cars, and once again, they wait.
He thinks it's over. Well, he's trying to give NASCAR every indication that he's finished racing for the night, so he's trying to help them make their decision a little bit quicker.
There's a smile. I think he's got a pretty good idea what's getting ready to happen here.
And this race has now been called complete. It is official, and Mike Bliss is the winner of the CarQuest 300 here at Lowe's Motor Speedway.
By staying out as long as he possibly could, along with a timely caution, the 44-year-old Mike Bliss has toppled the Bushwhackers 11 races into the season. Brad Keselowski goes over and congratulates his unofficial teammates at Phoenix Racing. Deep down, I'm sure he's hoping his turn would be next. One year after Joey Logano made his Nationwide Series debut, he qualifies on the pole for the Hell of a Good 200. A competition caution will be thrown on lap 35 after a massive downpour hit the track yesterday. As the race starts, Justin Allgaier spins his tires and causes a stack up, which ends with Peyton Sellers receiving damage on the left rear of his car. A lap later, Peyton's race goes from bad to worse as he ends up in the wall in turn 2, bringing out the race's first caution. On the restart, Logano gets the jump on Kyle Busch entering turn 1. On lap 17, Greg Biffle has a right front tire go down and flattens the right side of his car. The race would stay green as Biffle makes a 2-tire pit stop. He's already 2 laps down by the time he stops in his pit box, and by the time he makes it back out on the track, he's 4 laps down. As the race returns from commercial break, we see there's been a crash between Ken Butler III and John West Townley. Given how close this caution has come to the scheduled competition yellow, this will serve as the competition caution. The race restarts on lap 35 as Logano leads the field to green. After trying to make the pass for 7 laps, Kyle Busch takes the lead. On lap 74, Eric McClure would make contact with Kevin LePage off of turn 2 and send him into the inside wall. Logano beats Busch off of pit road before leading the field back to green on lap 79. On lap 85, in the midst of heavy traffic, Jason Leffler gets into the back of his teammate in the 10, Mark Davis. The race restarts on lap 90, and coming off of turn 2, Busch is right on Logano's back bumper. 2 laps later, Stephen Wallace has a left rear tire going flat entering turn 1. Ryan Newman tries to go to the outside, but doesn't make the move quick enough. He makes contact with the 66 and ends up in the wall. The race restarts on lap 97. Busch is once again right on Logano's bumper down the backstretch. A lap later, the 28 of Kenny Wallace and the 34 of Tony Raines are both going slow on the track. Both cars make it to pit road and the race stays green. On lap 109, Busch passes Logano for the lead once more. 21 laps later, Ryan Newman blows a tire entering turn 3. The field comes down for fuel and tires. Busch finally wins the race off pit road. Clint Boyer gains 2 spots while Keselowski falls 2. The race restarts on lap 139 as Boyer doesn't get a good restart. Just 2 laps later, Greg Biffle gets into the wall once more. The race would stay green as Stephen Wallace pulls onto pit road after getting into the wall. A lap later, David Reagan loses it in turn 3, collecting Kevin Harvick and bringing out the caution. The race restarts again with 50 laps remaining. 9 laps later, Michael McDowell tries to dive in behind Scott Lagasse Jr., but he wasn't clear, sending Lagasse into the outside wall, the inside wall, and back into the outside wall again. Busch leads the field to green with 34 laps to go. As the race enters its final 15 laps, Kyle Busch looks to have this one in the bag. For the 5th straight race, Kyle has led the most laps. Unfortunately for him, he's only won 1 of the last 4. 7 laps later, Scott Wimmer blows a tire entering turn 1, bringing out the caution and setting up a rapid dash to the finish. The race will restart with 2 laps remaining. Logano and Keselowski both have Busch locked in their sights. Logano has been passed by Busch twice for the lead, and he wants to return the favor when it matters the most. He times the restart perfectly and is right on Busch's bumper at the end of the front stretch. He tries to move Busch entering turn 1, shoving him all the way up into the marbles. Logano washes up the track while making the move, and opens up a lane for Keselowski to hug the bottom and pass them both. As the field exits turn 2, it's clear Busch has a much bigger problem, as Justin Allgaier makes contact with the 18 while trying to avoid him. Entering turn 3, Brad still leads over Logano and Bowyer. As they take the white flag, Keselowski only has to hold off the hard-charging Logano for just 1 lap.
Battle for second continues. We did not expect this kind of finish right here, boys.
Second place, here goes Bowyer on the inside of Logano. Can he get him? Less than half a lap to go. We told you strange things happen at the Monster Mile, and what a finish here at Dover, Delaware. Brad Keselowski comes out of 4 and will pick up his first win in 2009.
Keselowski wins, driving the same car he drove to his win at Bristol last August. The chassis named the Concrete Cowboy will sit in victory lane once again at a concrete racetrack. Just like his win at Talladega, the only laps he led today were the ones that mattered the most. As the dust settles and the smoke clears, Busch sits atop the point standings, 40 points ahead of Edwards. Jason Leffler sits in 3rd, Logano in 4th, and Keselowski sits 5th as the series heads to Nashville. Kyle Busch would earn his first victory at the facility. Keselowski would finish 2nd and overtake Joey Logano in the point standings. The race itself wouldn't be remembered as much as the victory lane celebration, where Kyle smashes the trophy, a hand-painted guitar by legendary artist Sam Bass. At Kentucky, Joey Logano would return to the series and return to victory lane, becoming the first driver with 2 wins at the track. With Keselowski finishing 3rd, he now sits 3rd in points behind Carl Edwards and Kyle Busch. The following race at Milwaukee would be won by Carl Edwards. At New Hampshire, Kyle Busch would return to victory lane, his 5th win so far this season. 2008 Series champion Clint Bowyer would win at Daytona, winning the first nationwide series race with double file restarts implemented. Joey Logano would return to victory lane the next race at Chicagoland. Kyle Busch finishes 2nd, marking his 6th straight top 2 finish. Kyle Busch would win the following week at Gateway, adding to his top 2 streak. The series' next race would take us to O'Reilly Raceway Park, where Carl Edwards would return to victory lane. Finishing 2nd would be who else but Kyle Busch. After finishing 2nd or better in 8 straight races, Kyle leads the point standings by 192 points over Edwards. 200 points behind Edwards in 3rd is Brad Keselowski. The series would then gear up to head to a new track on the 2009 schedule, Iowa Speedway. In the series' first trip to Iowa, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. becomes the 5th first-time pole winner this season. He leads the field to green before John West Townley's track bar breaks on lap 3 and causes him to spin on the backstretch. Stenhouse leads the field back to green on lap 8. Justin Allgaier would make the pass on the outside and take the lead. Just a few laps later, the 81 of Sean Murphy crashes in turn 2. The race goes green and has its longest green flag run so far of just 24 laps before Casey Atwood crashes in turn 2 and brings out the 3rd caution of the race less than 40 laps in. The field makes their stops and most of the leaders only take 2 tires. Brad Keselowski wins the race off pit road, as Stenhouse in 9th and Kyle Busch in 10th are the first drivers who took 4 tires. Keselowski leads the field back to green on lap 45 and clears Allgaier off of turn 2. The race goes green for 30 laps before Eric Almirola crashes in turn 3. The field comes down pit road once again. Busch only takes 2 tires while Allgaier and Keselowski take 4. The race off pit road will be won by Eric Darnell, who only took fuel. Mike Bliss and Austin Dillon lead the field back to green after both of them stayed out. Bliss is able to hold off Busch for a lap before Kyle takes the lead. Keselowski slots into 2nd and begins his chase towards Busch. 10 laps later, Brad has closed the gap and attempts a pass in turn 1, but can't complete the move. Brad and Kyle continue to battle until lap 93 when a spin by Michael McDowell brings out the caution. Busch leads the field to green on lap 98. As the field begins to spread out, Brad isn't letting Kyle out of his sight. 7 laps later, Keselowski completes the pass for the lead. On lap 109, after contact with Brian Eichler, Brendan Gaughan has a tire go down into turn 1 and collects Ken Butler III, Austin Dillon, and Stephen Light. The race would restart once more. As Keselowski begins to stretch out his lead, a three-way battle for second is heating up with Busch, Allgaier, and Scott Wimmer. The race would continue under green until the broadcast goes to commercial on lap 139. As the broadcast resumes, the caution is out for debris after an oil line breaks on Kevin Harvick's car. The field comes down pit road for fuel and tires. Busch wins the race off, with Allgaier being second. Stephen Light and Mike Bliss are third and fourth after taking 2 tires, and Keselowski drops all the way back to 5th. The race restarts and Busch gets the jump on the field. As the top 2 of Busch and Allgaier begin to slightly break away from the field, a massive battle for third is taking place with 6 cars practically under a blanket. On lap 152, Trevor Bayne gets loose and spins Mike Bliss. The outside lane gets a better launch on the following restart, allowing Keselowski to slot in third behind Allgaier and Busch. However, by the following lap, Eric Darnell is trying to retake third from Brad. A couple laps later, Brad gets a good run underneath Allgaier and is able to clear him by the time they exit turn 2. On lap 166, Brad Coleman gets loose underneath Brian Eichler, sending them both into the outside wall and once again bringing out the yellow flag. The high side once again gets the better launch on the restart. Busch is able to easily maintain the lead off of turn 2, as Keselowski narrowly slides in line to keep second place. As we ride along with Brad, we see that he's almost a full mile per hour quicker than Busch. On lap 178, he's able to get beside the 18 on the front stretch, and tries to make the bottom lane work going down into turn 1. Mirroring the move he made on Allgaier earlier, Keselowski is able to get a run on Busch down the front stretch, and stays even with him on the entry to the corner. Lap after lap, they battle side by side, until Keselowski is finally able to clear Kyle off of turn 2. Brad would then drive away with ease. By the time the race is left with 44 laps to go, he has a 2.5 second lead over Busch. While the broadcast was under commercial break, Justin Allgaier gets loose underneath the lapped car of Austin Dillon. A couple laps later, Dillon's left front tire goes flat, causing him to hit the wall and bring out the caution. Kyle Busch takes 2 tires and is first off pit road. He'll be restarting 4th, behind Keselowski, Stephen Wallace, and Michael Annett, who all stayed out. The race restarts and Annett drops like a rock as the field exits turn 2. Busch tries to put the 88 away before his fresh tires are no longer an advantage. With 26 laps to go, Kyle uses the high side to get to the outside of Brad. By the time they exit turn 4, Busch clears him, but Brad isn't letting him get away, getting back underneath the 18 soon after. However, Brad gets loose entering turn 3 and almost makes contact with Busch. This allows Kyle to stretch his lead ever so slightly. 4 laps later, Morgan Shepherd spins on the front stretch and brings out the yellow. As the race restarts with 16 laps remaining, Brad stays right with Kyle off of 2, before Eric Darnell, Stephen Wallace, and Justin Allgaier get locked together on the backstretch, bringing out the yellow once more. The race will come down to Busch and Keselowski, 10 laps to decide the winner. Busch gets a perfect launch on the restart as Keselowski follows behind him. A lap later, they're comfortably ahead of the battle for third. Just like he's done many times today, Keselowski gets a good run on the front stretch and rockets to the lead entering turn 1. The laps tick away as Busch and Keselowski check out on the field. Kyle stays right in Brad's tire tracks, but can't get a run strong enough to make the move. With 5 laps to go, he gets the run he was hoping for off of turn 2, and is alongside the 88 entering turn 3. Brad uses the momentum from the high side to clear Busch once more as they come to 4 to go. Lap after lap, Brad holds his lead over Kyle.
Let's listen to the crowd as they come by with now 2 laps remaining. Down into 1 again, that low line, and boy, he is just able to hug the bottom.
Right now, Marty's got the opportunity to look in his mirror, block him off if he's got to. He can see where Kyle's going to go, and he'll move that baby right up in front of him and block that line. But right now, from what I've seen, he just got a faster car, about a 1/10 of a second faster than Kyle Busch right now.
White flag is out. Listen to the crowd. 7/8 of a mile to traverse for the 88 of Brad Keselowski. And who says you need practice?
We're talking about practice, boys.
Down the back straightaway the last time into turn number 3 with plenty of air to spare. The 88 of Brad Keselowski with his 2nd win and an inaugural win at Iowa.
night, Keselowski remains third in points, 165 points behind Carl Edwards, and 372 points behind points leader Kyle Busch. Speaking of Kyle, this race marks history for him. With his second place finish, he ties Jack Ingram's record of 9 straight top 2 finishes, 3 wins, 6 seconds. After the race, Kyle, visibly dejected, bluntly answers Mike Massaro's question of how does it feel to tie the record.
Just imagine if all those seconds were wins.
That would be very impressive.
The series would then head to Watkins Glen. A big storyline heading into the weekend was the shakeup happening at Phoenix Racing. Despite currently being 6th in points, along with having a win and multiple strong runs throughout the season, Mike Bliss would be released from Phoenix Racing after having conflicts with his crew chief Mark Reno. Bliss would end up finishing last at Watkins Glen, starting parking the 90 for MSRP Motorsports. For the second year in a row, Marcus Ambrose would win at Watkins Glen. Kyle Busch with yet another second place finish, he increases his championship lead and breaks the record for most consecutive top 2 finishes in Nationwide Series history. Brian Vickers starts on the pole for the Carfax 250, with Trevor Bayne starting second. The field takes the green, and by the time they exit the corner, Brian Vickers and Kyle Busch are already starting to pull away. On lap 3, the first caution would come out after Trevor Bayne gets loose and collects Carl Edwards, ending his day in the process. The race restarts and Vickers holds the lead on the exit of the corner. Busch would clear Vickers for the lead on lap 15. Kyle would go into the history books once again by becoming the first driver in Nationwide Series history to lead a lap in 20 straight races, before Vickers regains the lead 4 laps later. On lap 42, Kevin Harvick and Ryan Newman are the first ones into the pits to begin the cycle of stops. As the leaders make their pit stops, a caution would fly for fluid on the track. Luckily for them, they had made it onto pit road before it closed. As we learned that Denny Hamlin's shifter is broken, I realized that I had forgot to mention that Scott Lagasse Jr. got released by CJM Racing after Iowa. The driver's release led to the sponsorship of America's Incredible Pizza leaving the team as well, leaving Ride Makers, FedEx, and Carfax to pick up the sponsorship for the remaining races. The race restarts on lap 50, and Vickers clears Busch on corner exit. Keselowski is able to get around David Reagan and move into third. Shortly after, Busch makes the pass on Vickers for the lead. 12 laps later, Vickers is able to grab it back. 7 laps after that, the top 2 swap the lead once more. 2 laps later, they swap positions again as they cross the stripe with 50 laps to go. With 36 laps remaining, green flag pit stops begin. 4 laps later, Vickers and Busch both make their way down pit road for what could be their final pit stops of the day, allowing for Keselowski to lead 2 laps before making his stop. The cycle completes with 25 to go, and Busch is cycled to the lead ahead of Vickers. As Kyle tries to stretch his lead, Brendan Gaughan blows a tire on the backstretch, bringing out the caution for debris. For the final charge to the finish, many of the front runners choose to come down pit road for 4 fresh tires. However, Brad wins the race off with a 2-tire call, beating out both Busch and Vickers. As the field heads to the restart zone, Justin Allgaier, the lone driver who stayed out, is in control of the restart. Allgaier spins his worn tires, and Busch makes a 3-wide pass for the lead entering turn 1. Entering turn 3, Vickers jumps to the outside lane and passes both Keselowski and Busch on the exit of turn 4, but Busch stays right alongside him as they exit turn 2 with 11 laps to go. As soon as Keselowski has enough momentum to potentially make a move, a caution for the 14 of Justin Lofton would set up a potential mad dash to the finish. It's clearly obvious that Busch and Vickers are head and shoulders above the rest of the field today. The third best car has been Keselowski, but he hasn't been on the level of the 32 or the 18. The only chance he has at the win is if a repeat of the last restart takes place. He was right there with them after they began battling side by side. It's a small chance, but he still has one. The race restarts with 7 laps remaining, as Busch hangs with Vickers down the front stretch. The field exits turn 2 and Brad Coleman makes contact with the outside wall. The race stays green. Allgaier moves into third around Keselowski as the leaders begin to drive away. A lap later, Brad regains third as Allgaier falls to 5th behind David Reagan. With 4 laps to go, Trevor Bayne gets tight on the exit of turn 2 and washes up into the outside wall. Again, the race stays green as Busch plans his move on Vickers. Heading to 2 to go, Busch puts his left side tires on the apron to try to find a way around Vickers. Unable to do so, he files back in behind the 32. Heading into turn 3, Brian gets loose and has to chase his car up the track, slowing both himself and Kyle. Brad charges off the corner as Vickers side drafts Busch, allowing them to be 3 wide at the line as they take the white flag.
Check out Keselowski, guys.
Coming to the high
He's gonna
side.
have this high
White
side
flag right here.
White flag.
Keselowski's right where he needs to be. We're 3 wide in turn 1.
Holy cow.
Vickers can't hold on right there.
Keselowski's going to have the advantage off of turn 2.
It's all about momentum, and 32 can't hold on to it right now. It's just too loose.
Who's Kyle Busch going to fall in behind here?
The 32 is going to be a lot looser.
The 18 can go to the high side. I'm not sure he's got enough of a run. Look at the 32 with the power there. I don't think he can hang on again.
It looks like Keselowski's going to get the momentum off forward, guys.
And that's going to win him the race right there. It's a drag race down the line.
And Brad Keselowski's going to win it.
That's the key. He said he never had much success around his home. He wanted to do good in front of family and friends. Can't do any better than that. Discussion.
A few little words here.
Oh, here we go. Nothing wrong with controversy.
He hung up my right rear quarter panel all the way down the front straightaway and gave the win to the 88 car. He slowed us down so much. He had no idea the 88 car was coming. And the 88 just drove right by both of us on the outside because Brian Vickers was trying to slow both of us down. Just stupid. Unfortunately, you race with idiots, and you know, I guess you'll have that sometimes.
You couldn't hear his response to it. He said you were slowing him up, and that was stupid. Your take?
Oh man, I tell you, I am so sorry. I forgot it was the Kyle Busch show.
At the end of the day, he'll still be leaving with a points lead of 339 points over Carl Edwards. 50 points behind Edwards is Keselowski. Plus, more and more rumors are beginning to swirl online about where Keselowski will go in 2010. We know it'll be in the Cup Series in some capacity, but nobody's entirely sure where he will land. Like I said earlier, the 5 car he had originally been slated to drive in 2010 is no longer an option, nor is any other car at Hendrick Motorsports, nor would there be an available seat open at HMS's affiliate, Stewart-Haas Racing. At Bristol, we would get our answer.
He made a big announcement that he's going Sprint Cup racing for Roger Penske next year, that this week, while he's also going to continue to run the Nationwide Series.
David Reagan would win the next race at Bristol. After a crash early on in the race for points leader Kyle Busch, both Edwards and Keselowski would cut down Busch's lead to 248 and 303 points respectively. At Montreal, for the 3rd straight season, Marcus Ambrose dominated and looked to be cruising to an easy win until he blew the final corner and jumped the curb, handing the win to Carl Edwards.
Right here and there. Oh, Marcus! Big town curve. Here comes Philip Lustig.
No! Can you believe this?
With 10 races now left in the season, Busch's lead is just 192 points over Carl and 282 points over Brad. Kevin Harvick would win at Atlanta with Busch finishing 2nd. Edwards would go back to victory lane at Richmond with Busch finishing 3rd. Clint Boyer would win at Dover as Busch's points lead sits at 211 points. Joey Logano would win at Kansas as Busch would finish 2nd and increase his lead in the championship standings to 245 points. Joey would win again at Auto Club, and after a late race crash, Kyle's points lead drops to just 155 points over Edwards and 227 over Keselowski. Kyle would once again increase his lead in the standings to 195 points after dominating at Charlotte and returning to victory lane. As the camera pans over MphsMotorsportsPark, I gotta say, this is a pretty badass little racetrack. Unfortunately, the future of this track is up in the air at the moment. This could very well be the last ever NASCAR race at this facility. Hopefully, a good race would save this place. For the first time in his Nationwide Series career, Justin Allgaier will be starting on the pole. Scott Wimmer makes an impressive effort in qualifying, good enough to put him on the outside of the front row. Starting in third in the JR Motorsports number 5 is Richard Boswell, making his first start in the series. Another driver making their first start in the series is 17-year-old Matt DiBenedetto. 4 Bushwhackers will be in the race tonight, all of whom are starting in the rear after missing qualifying. The race goes green and Allgaier easily clears Wimmer heading into turn 1. Allgaier leads lap 1 as the Bushwhackers are already on the move through the field. By lap 6, Kyle Busch has made it up to 25th. 2 laps later, John West Townley blows a motor heading into turn 1 and oils down the track. What started as a 2-car crash quickly led to other unlucky drivers sliding in the oil and piling in. After a lengthy cleanup, the race goes green again on lap 22. Just 3 laps later, a 7-car wreck on the exit of turn 4 would bring out the yellow once again. Allgaier leads the field to green on lap 32. Just 3 laps later, Mike Bliss, behind the wheel of the CJM Racing number 11 today, makes a move to the inside entering turn 3 and grabs the lead. On lap 38, DiBenedetto makes a move on Allgaier for second. Justin tries to fall in line with Matt, but Keselowski is already there, causing Allgaier to spin and bring out the caution. A good number of cars come down pit road to change tires and refuel. Keselowski also makes a stop to repair damage on the right front. Bliss leads the field back to green and is able to clear DiBenedetto before turn 3. As the field begins to spread out, Carl Edwards is on the move, as is Landon Castle behind the wheel of the number 1, passing DiBenedetto for second. Eventually, Edwards gets by both of them and aims to chase down Bliss. On lap 62, Mark Day gets into the back of Michael Annett and sends him spinning. Many of the leaders would come down pit road for fresh tires. Busch would pick up 5 spots and win the race off pit road. He would line up behind Edwards, Eric Darnell, Keselowski, Mike Wallace, Allgaier, Kelly Byers, Tony Raines, Richard Boswell, and Shelby Howard, who all stayed out. Edwards leads the field back to green. Keselowski makes his way underneath Darnell and takes second. A couple laps later, Carl lets the faster car by, and Brad grabs the lead. During commercial break, the 10 of Justin Marks spins in turn 1, collecting Mark Day and Matt DiBenedetto. Keselowski leads the field back to green on lap 84. He clears Edwards down the backstretch as the hard-charging Mike Bliss makes a move underneath Carl for second. Bliss gets around Edwards with Busch doing the same soon after. Just a couple laps later, Bliss passes Keselowski to regain the lead. As Bliss begins lap 89, 7th place runner Landon Castle spins off of turn 4 after contact from Brendan Gaughan to bring out the 6th caution of the race. The race restarts on lap 94, and after starting on the outside of the front row, Busch rockets to the lead off of turn 2. He would lead a lap and get valuable bonus points in the championship, before pulling to the inside a lap later and letting Bliss by. The race would have its longest green flag run of the day so far until a caution on lap 125 for Eric Darnell spinning in turn 2 after a bump from Kenny Wallace. The leaders would come down pit road for 4 tires and fuel as Kyle Busch once again wins the race off. The green flag flies on lap 130 as Bliss doesn't get a good restart and falls back to 3rd, allowing Busch to easily hold the lead off of turn 2 ahead of Keselowski. Mike would get back around Brad and make the pass for the lead shortly after. Edwards would get around both Brad and Kyle to take second. He would get right on the back bumper of Bliss before a caution comes out. After Eddie McDonald spins on the backstretch, a stack-up causes Eric Darnell to plow into the back of Stephen Light, and then into the side of the stationary number 39. Bliss leads the field back to green on lap 163, as Carl fights hard on the outside. Edwards takes the lead off of turn 4 and tries to pull away. A lap later, Keselowski gets into the back of Bliss entering turn 3, causing them both to wash up the track. No sooner than the two of them file back in line, a caution comes out for a hard hit to the outside wall by Eric McClure. The red flag would come out for the accident, as safety crews would assist Eric out of the car as they waited for the ambulance. After the cleanup was completed and Eric was helped onto the gurney, the race would go back under caution. The race goes green once more on lap 172, as Edwards times the restart to perfection. Exiting turn 2, Carl has a 2.5 car length lead. 2 laps later, Justin Allgaier gets loose exiting turn 2 and gets into Kelly Byers. Byers tries to save it but ends up just looping it around. The race would restart on lap 179 as Kyle hangs tough on the outside of Edwards entering turn 1. As the run continues and the field spreads out, Bliss works his way around Keselowski for third. As Edwards tries to pull away from Busch, Bliss is now aiming to grab second from the points leader, and on lap 193 he does just that. On lap 195, Kelly Byers has a right front tire go down and limps around the track to the pits, allowing the race to stay green. With 44 laps remaining, Jason Keller is black flagged due to a massive amount of smoke coming from the car. He and the team try to protest the black flag, but after 3 laps they're told that they will no longer be scored until the damage is fixed. What was initially thought to be a tire rub is a much more serious issue as a puddle of oil forms in their pit box. A strong run literally goes up in smoke as he pulls behind the wall. With 31 lap newer tires, both Brendan Gaughan and Michael Annett have worked their way into the top 5 with 35 laps remaining as the race goes to commercial. When the race returns from break, Gaughan has passed Edwards for the lead. With 25 laps to go, it's looking like Brendan Gaughan could potentially win his first Nationwide Series race. That is until 2 laps later when a caution for debris would end the longest green flag run of the race. The debris in question would be
piece of paper. Oh, please don't tell me it's paper. It's a piece of paper.
After 50 laps under green, the field comes down pit road for a fresh set of tires to get them to the end of the race. Unfortunately for Gaughan, he doesn't have any new sets of tires left, so the team is forced to put on scuffs. Edwards wins the race off pit road with Bliss in second, Keselowski in third, Gaughan in fourth, and Busch in fifth. Michael Annett, Kenny Wallace, and Tony Raines all stay out. The green flag flies with 18 laps remaining as Annett has a strong restart, easily clearing Kenny Wallace. Exiting turn 2, Keselowski gets into the back of Edwards. Carl tries to save it before getting tagged by the 12 of Allgaier. Matt DiBenedetto, Stephen Light, and Brian Eichler would be collected as well. The race will restart with 12 laps to go. Michael Annett still leads with Tony Raines in second. As they head into turn 1, Annett washes up into Raines. This leaves a lane open on the bottom for Keselowski. Brad slips by on the bottom and grabs the lead for the second time today, with Busch following behind. Mike Bliss gets held up on the high lane and falls through the field. A lap later, Annett spins in turn 4 and hits the outside wall. Shockingly, no caution would be thrown. The caution would instead come out a lap later, after what's left of Allgaier's car is struggling to make it to pit road. The race will come down to a 5-lap dash to the finish. The green flag flies and Keselowski jumps out to the lead. Brad looks to be driving away for what would be his 4th win of the season. Mike Bliss tries to mount a charge in the race's final laps. Bliss ends up in a 3-wide battle between himself and the Rusty Wallace duo of Gaughan and Stephen Wallace. Heading into turn 3, Wallace backs out to try to get back to the bottom lane, but Matt Kenseth is already there. Wallace spins off his nose and backs into the outside wall. 2 laps, 2 drivers. 1, a 25-year-old Cup Series prospect. While not mathematically eliminated from the championship, realistically his shot at the 2009 title is over, and he's looking to end his Nationwide Series season with a bang. The other, a veteran at just 24 years old, with 16 Cup Series wins to his name already, and is almost guaranteed the Nationwide Series championship. Both are aggressive. Both have members in the garage area that are critical of them. Their talent is plentiful, as is their passion for what they do. And while the two of them both want nothing more than to park their respective race cars in victory lane, there can only be one.
Neither one is going to lift. Coming out of 4, pace car is in, and hold your breath because Brad slows him down and then gets on the gas, and he's first across the line, but Kyle is right there with him. But again, going into 1, it's a lot closer this time than the last. Leffler right behind, but again, Keselowski clears by turn 2.
Bring it around. I don't believe he has anything for him unless he misses his marks and gets the thing real loose. He's trying on the inside.
This time by, the white flag will be out. Brad Keselowski, 3/4 of a mile away from 75,000 big ones. Kyle Busch right behind him. Down the backstretch for the last time. Does Kyle have anything left that he can get underneath? They go into 3. Nobody else is going to contend for this. Hang on, coming through 4. It is. Oh, and he scores and Keselowski
The week after at Texas, Kyle Busch would earn his 8th win of the season, extending his points lead over Carl Edwards by 247 points. Edwards would win at the penultimate race at Phoenix, earning a maximum points day of 195 points. A 9th place finish from Kyle shrinks his points lead to 190 points heading into the final race. At Homestead, Edwards needed a miracle to win the championship. Unfortunately for him, Kyle Busch would win his 9th race of the season and the championship by a final margin of 210 points. Brad Keselowski ends the year in 3rd, 318 points behind. Jason Leffler, in his best full-time season in the Nationwide Series, ends the year 4th in points. And after losing his ride, bouncing around from team to team, and even starting parking a couple of races, Mike Bliss caps off his season 5th in points. He even ends up back behind the wheel of the Phoenix Racing number 1 in Homestead. For the 4th straight season, a Cup Series driver has won the Nationwide Series title. And heading into the new decade, it's looking more likely that this is the new normal. And in 2010, who do we even have to compete with them? Justin Allgaier showed flashes of brilliance, but I'm sure he'll need some more time to develop. Jason Leffler is still hanging in there. While the victories aren't there, the consistency is. And our only hope for dethroning the Bushwhackers these last 2 seasons, he's joining the other side. And while I can't say I blame him, after all, every NASCAR driver's dream is to make it to the Cup Series, it's an unfortunate reality. Just as unfortunate as the declining television ratings and the still sliding economy. At the end of the day, there's an old saying that will perfectly encapsulate what we will eventually experience in Part 5. If you can't beat them, join them.
Any sense of betrayal since you were essentially promised, as you said, that ride?
You know, I never really thought of it as betrayal, I guess. Well, maybe I did. I don't know. It's more heartbroken.
You know, he'll get a ride and he'll hang around for a couple of years and people will realize that he's not really that good.
I would say it definitely added fuel to the fire of who I am and my desire to be the best.
Here he goes on the inside. Keselowski trying to get it done. First time winner, Brad Keselowski.
It's awesome. This is it. This is what I've been dreaming of my whole life.